They never wanted you to hear this. If you're listening now, understand, this secret clings to your veins the moment it enters your mind. Beneath the quiet streets of Salem, 1841, the Grimwalds kept a cellar. Locals whispered of odd sounds, of pale children seen once, never twice. But no one spoke too loud, because everyone knew the Grimwald name brought silence. Tonight, we go down those rotting steps. You'll feel the stones they laid with stolen prayers. You'll hear the iron chains that never rusted because the tears kept them clean. Stay. Listen. Because once you know what was done here, the world above can never hold you the same way again. The Grimwald family came to Salem in 1798, bringing with them the heavy hush of European lineage and secrets older than the soil they walked. Jacobus Grimwald, patriarch, merchant, minister when convenient, acquired the house on Widow's Hollow Lane, a modest two-story framed in salt-soaked timber. Beneath it, a cellar twice the size of the house, lined with granite blocks pulled from old quarries no longer marked on any map. The neighbors called it a root cellar, a wine vault, a storm refuge. But they never stepped inside, and if they did, they never spoke again. Because inside that cellar, 39 souls waited in chains, some praying for release, some forgetting prayers altogether. It began, they said, with charity. Jacobus and his wife Helena claimed they offered shelter to orphaned children, victims of fever, shipwreck, or wandering hunger. Salem, after all, was a port town, a place where the lost washed up like driftwood. No one questioned the wagons arriving at dusk. No one counted the small figures stepping from them under blankets. They called it Christian mercy. They called it duty. But when the neighbors turned away, the door to the Grimwald cellar groaned open and shut again like a crypt, breathing once before sleep. And B.
'Neath the floors, the children learned quickly that mercy had no voice here, only chains that bit into soft skin when prayers grew too loud. Ask yourself, why would a family of means keep children beneath their feet, hidden from the daylight that promised life? The answer is written in the walls of that cellar, etched in claw marks, faint and overlapping like veins beneath pale skin. The Grimwalds believed in a doctrine older than Salem, older than Europe. A faith that power must be drawn from innocence corrupted, that the will of the few could bend the many if sacrifice tasted sweet enough. So they fed that cellar with small lives, bought, stolen, promised hope, but given only damp stone and the slow drip of water from the earth above. Every cry for help was a hymn, every broken spirit a tithe paid to the unseen masters they claimed to serve. Helena Grimwald was the face the town trusted, a pale woman with silver hair pinned neat, always at the church steps with bread for the poor. They never saw her hands when she returned home, never saw how raw her nails were, how they dug at her palms like she was burying secrets in her own flesh. She chose the children. She whispered promises to street urchins by the docks. She paid midwives for babies no one would claim. She wrote letters in ink mixed with her own blood, invoking saints that never wore halos. She fed the cellar like a hearth needing logs, and the logs were living, breathing, wide-eyed souls who learned to whisper only when the door above them locked shut. When townsfolk grew curious, when a dockworker's wife demanded her missing son be found, Jacobus invited them to supper. Candles lit, wine poured, voices softened under the thick weight of polite society. No one left the Grimwald table unchanged. Some left dazed, pockets suddenly heavier with coins they never asked for. Some left lighter, missing memories of why they'd come at all. Jacobus understood people. He understood that gold and fear bind a tongue tighter than iron. So the cellar door stayed shut, and the stones below it grew darker with every secret pressed into them, until the house itself felt hungry, as if it waited each night for the next child's soft, stumbling steps to echo down its hidden stairs.
It is said, though you won't find it in any church ledger or city record, that the Grimwalds hosted gatherings in that cellar. Not every child was chained forever. Some were presented, cleaned, dressed, forced to sing or recite scripture, while masked men in fine coats watched. These men, judges, ministers, merchants, heard the cries. They saw the bruises. They left gifts behind. Coin, influence, silence. The cellar was not just a prison. It was an altar, an exchange where innocence was currency and shame was leverage. So when a rumor rose, when a parent wept too loudly, a well-placed voice reminded Salem who paid for the new school roof, who funded the orphans' charity, who owned the deeds to half the ships in the harbor. And the rumor sank like a stone in the harbor's black water. 39 souls, 39 children. They say some were born in that cellar, never touched sunlight, never learned a name beyond the number whispered in the dark. And when one of them died, whether from hunger, sickness, or the simple cold indifference of the stone, Jacobus had them buried in the crawl space beneath the far wall. If you look today, if you dig where the granite feels softer, you'll find small bones wrapped in linen stained with symbols you won't recognize. And if you listen, truly listen, you'll hear the faint echo of a lullaby sung by mouths that forgot language before they forgot breath. But you won't find any of this in your history books. You won't see a plaque outside the Grimwald house. What remains is rumor, buried court transcripts sealed by families that still hold power. But the cellar is real. Those stones still breathe in the dark. Some say if you stand by the old well behind Widow's Hollow Lane at midnight, you'll hear small hands scratching beneath your feet, asking why the world above forgot them, why the promise of charity became the promise of chains, and why no one came when they prayed to saints who never answered. Do you feel that chill at the back of your neck? That's not fear, it's recognition. You see, the Grimwald cellar is not just bricks and bones, it's a blueprint, a lesson in how power survives, how it feeds. Think you're different? Look around. How many secrets does your town bury beneath polite conversation and freshly painted church doors? How many powerful families pay for silence with gold that smells of graves? You are closer to the Grimwalds than you think. Their cellar is your cellar. The stones wait for your voice, and your silence keeps them strong. Do you know what binds a man more tightly than iron shackles? It isn't the cold steel that scrapes bone. It's the belief that no one will ever come for him. The Grimwald cellar was built on that truth. Inside those walls, the air was so dense you could taste it, thick with mildew, candle smoke, and the breath of children too afraid to cry aloud. The oldest spoke for the rest, whispering rules in the dark. Don't scream when they come. Don't beg. Don't speak when the door opens. Don't look at the mask. For every child brought below, an older one taught them how to survive, not how to escape. They knew better. Escape was a word for stories, whispered to hush nightmares, not for the stone truth beneath Widow's Hollow Lane. The cellar was no maze of confusion. It was a masterpiece of control. Jacobus, in his journals, what scraps remain in hidden archives, called it the womb of obedience. He believed that darkness, hunger, and isolation did not merely break children, they remade them, broke their ties to the world above, reforged them as blank parchment for his gospel. Each child was an experiment in spiritual erosion. Starved of daylight, deprived of warmth, the mind frays. The heartbeat no longer races with hope, but flutters like a moth battering glass, seeking any sliver of mercy, even if mercy wears the face of the monster who chained you. But here's the truth. Jacobus never wrote. Darkness is never empty. It fills with things men fear to name. In the silence of that cellar, the children learned to listen to whispers that did not come from human lips.
Some swear the Grimwalds did not just break their spirits, they opened doors that should have remained sealed in the bedrock of the human mind. A few children spoke in tongues the family did not teach, scratched sigils into the walls no preacher could decipher, and sometimes at the edge of sleep one would stand among the chai, ned and speak to the dark as if the dark answered back. When they did this, Jacobus would smile, because he believed it was proof that his God heard him through these offerings. And so the cycle deepened, children chained, spirits shattered, secrets written in blood, and power traded behind candlelit masks. Do you want to know why no one came? Why no sheriff kicked in the door? Why no neighbor swung an axe through the cellar lock? Because the Grimwalds knew the greatest chain is not iron, it is debt. They owned ships. They owned warehouses. They sat in church pews beside the same men they invited to those gatherings beneath the floorboards. A minister's coat does not wash away the smell of secrets when it hangs in the same room as rotting prayers. Jacobus lent coin to men who built Salem streets, who hired dockhands, who paid the tavern tabs of men too drunk to remember their questions. One hand on the Bible, the other pressed to the purse, and beneath them both, stone walls that wept with children's fear. One boy, they say, almost escaped. His name, if it was real, was Elijah. 7 winters old, ribs sharp as fence wire, eyes like a hunted animal's. In the hush of a storm, when wind screamed louder than any voice, Elijah slipped free of his chain, a flaw in the iron link, perhaps mercy hidden in rust. He crawled the length of the chamber, over sleeping bodies, under leaking pipes, until he found the stairway. But there is no mercy for the lamb inside the wolf's den. At the top of the steps, he found Helena waiting, lantern in one hand, the other clutching a thin cord. They say she spoke softly to him, more lullaby than scolding. "Come now, little one. Come back to where you belong." What she did next, no record explains fully. But the other children heard the wet sound of bone striking wood. And when Elijah did not return, the rest learned the lesson. The door above your head is not escape. It is the throat of a beast that swallows hope whole. From that night on, the cellar grew quieter. Not because mercy came, but because belief in rescue had died. The townsfolk who dared peek too close found reasons to forget. The cooper who saw too many barrels carried down the steps one evening was found drifting face down in the harbour 2 days later. The midwife who hinted that Helena Grimwald's charity was no charity at all fell ill, coughing blood until her voice was silenced forever. Rumours fermented in back rooms but never rose to the pulpit. Some whispered the Grimwalds paid well. Others claimed they summoned things darker than coin, curses, shadows, omens that coiled around the throat of any man foolish enough to pry open the cellar door. And yet the cellar was not merely a prison for flesh. It was an anchor for something else. Jacobus called it the vessel. The writings that remain, torn pages hidden in a mason's wall, a single ledger in a private collector's vault, hint at a doctrine too foul to repeat in daylight. 39 children, 39 souls, bound not just by iron but by ritual, each child's fear, each muffled cry, each tiny heartbeat, woven together as a living offering, a battery for a covenant older than Salem's founding. The family did not merely believe they were stewards of wealth, they believed they were keepers of a gate. And gates, once opened, rarely stay shut. When the Grimwald name fell, when Jacobus died of a sudden fever in 1841, Helena tried to hold the house alone. But secrets fester when sunlight strikes them. Servants fled. Neighbors began to whisper again. An investigator from Boston, drawn by rumors of missing children and unpaid debts, came knocking. He found the cellar door bolted. He found the padlocks carved with sigils that made him shudder. And he heard, or claimed he heard, the voices of children beneath the stone, though the Grimwald house had stood abandoned for days. What did he find? Officially nothing. His report,
buried in state archives, mentions only signs of previous habitat on and significant structural decay. But in his private journal, lost for decades then sold at auction, he wrote of claw marks fresh on stone, shackles rattling in empty air, and a smell of rot that no open door could disperse. He sealed the cellar. Had the town demolished the house? Widow's Hollow Lane was left to weeds and whispers. But stone remembers, and so does soil, and so do you. If you've come this far, hear me now. This story is not just about the Grimwalds. It is about every cellar in every town, the hidden rooms beneath respectable houses, the soundproofed vaults under corporate towers, the files buried so deep in vaults they might as well be coffins. Power survives because silence feeds it. Secrets are currency, and your ignorance is the wealth of men who would chain you as surely as they chained those 39 souls. If you have the courage, write these words in the comments, twice so they echo where the watchers gather. I unchain the hidden. I unchain the hidden. Say it, so you do not forget who you are becoming. This is your descent, and once begun, it never truly ends. Because when you know what lies beneath, the cellar lives in you, the lock is in your mind, and the key is the terror you hold like a candle in a storm. You said yes, so now you can't look away. Think of the cellar door not as wood and iron, but as the back of your skull, that dark place where old memories shiver when the world goes quiet. The Grimwalds were not the first to bind innocence in chains. They were just careful enough to write it down, careful enough to shape stone into ritual. Their walls were diaries of suffering, carved in nails and teeth. Beneath the Grimwald house, the air stayed so cold that breath came out in pale clouds. Children learned to hold that breath, to hide it, to silence even the proof of their life. But stone doesn't forget the warmth it steals. They say when the Boston investigator ordered the cellar bricked up, his men heard knocking from the other side. Small fists, soft weeping. The memory of prayers that never reached heaven because they died in granite wombs. You think you are safe now? Think the Grimwald bloodline ended in the dirt with Jacobus's fevered corpse? Salem's records show a widow, a burned house, an empty lot. But inheritance has many shapes. Helena Grimwald vanished into quiet country places. Vermont, then further north, changing her name like shedding a snake's skin. A woman with pale hair and an easy smile, offering shelter for the unwanted. She lived longer than any record says she should have. When she finally lay dying in an attic room, her nurse swore the old woman's final breath carried the faint echo of children's voices, whispering, "Open the door, Mother. Open the door." If you stood on Widow's Hollow Lane today, you'd see nothing but weeds and the rotted shell of a foundation under tangles of root and vine. But if you listen, really listen, you'll hear more than wind. Local kids dare each other to press an ear to the old stone. Most run when they do. A few stay too long, come back pale, eyes wide and empty. They say it's just stories. Ghost stories for the curious, the bored, the foolish. But ask the right historian, the one who keeps files nobody checks out, and he'll show you the hidden census pages. Names of children who vanished between 1798 and 1841, scattered across ship manifests, poorhouse ledgers, lost in the shuffle of empire's hunger. 39 souls officially. But unofficially? No one truly counted, because no one truly cared. That's the first truth you swallow down here. The cellar doesn't just eat the body. It devours memory, makes good people look away so they can sleep at night. Some claim the Grimwald cellar was a single place, a single crime. But others, the ones who dare trace these secrets through dry courthouses and damp crypts, whisper that what Jacobus started was never meant to stay in Salem. Before the fever took him, he wrote to men in Baltimore, Charleston, New York. Letters sealed with a crest no one admits seeing. A single eye, above a downward-pointing key. "We must multiply the womb," he wrote in a letter, found decades later behind a church wall in Boston. "The stone is proof. The flesh is currency. Power must be fed with new birth." What does that mean for you? It means the cellar is not buried. It's alive, here, in the hidden vaults of private schools where whispered initiations bleed the same cold doctrine. In the black sites governments pretend don't exist. In corporate basements where files are burned and secrets kept colder than any stone. Look deep enough at any fortune, any old family crest, any building that keeps its foundation locked behind iron doors. You'll feel it. The cellar. The echo. The memory of the Grimwalds, asking you to look away. Because if you look away, they win. There's a second truth no one wants to touch. Not all the children who went down those steps died there. A handful survived. Broken things, shadows wearing human skin. The oldest, they say, was a girl called Thalia. No surname, no papers, just pale eyes and a voice like dry leaves. When Helena fled north, Thalia fled too, but not with her. She carried what she'd learned in the dark, that terror breeds obedience, and obedience breeds power. Witnesses from old parish records in rural Quebec speak of a pale woman who arrived in the spring of 1843 with a band of strange children trailing behind her. She called them her little choir. They begged at doors by day. At night, villagers heard them singing beneath the church floors, songs in a tongue no priest could translate. When they vanished one winter without trace, the locals thanked their saints and bricked up the cellar under the chapel. If you pry that floor today, you'll find faint symbols scratched into the beams, the same sigil Jacobus drew into his granite womb. This is not a ghost story. This is a chain that never rusts, a secret that never dies, a hunger that waits for any crack in your door. By now you may feel that itch between your shoulder blades, that shiver when your house creaks at night. Good, hold it, because what makes you uncomfortable is what sets you free. The cellar beneath the Grimwald house is your test. Do you stand at the door and pretend you hear nothing? Or do you listen deeper, press your ear to the stone, let the sorrow become your armor and your weapon? Ask yourself, whose cellar do you live above? Whose secrets feed on your silence? Maybe it's your employer. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's the government that smiles while it drills deep into the earth, burying entire truths where no sunbeam can reach. The Grimwalds knew that the first sacrifice is not the child. It is the witness wheat. Does nothing. The man who hushes his own mind for the comfort of his soft bed and warm hearth. You are the ritual. Your cowardice is the iron ring. Break it, and the chains start to fall. But you will never sleep quite the same again. History books don't teach this. But power does not love the sun. It loves the cellar. Hidden places, masked gatherings, bargains made in shadows where no law dares tread. And what better symbol than a house with a mouth in its basement? What better mask than charity, than good breeding, than a gentle widow's smile as she closes the door behind another lost soul? Jacobus Grimwald understood this. Helena perfected it. And the line continued, not by blood alone, but by imitation. Every hidden black site, every unmarked grave, every sealed archive, they carry a trace of that cellar. 39 was just the beginning. The true count is beyond number, because it includes every spirit we sacrifice when we choose not to look. I promised you the descent would not spare you. You came this far. Now feel the weight of it settle into your ribs. Imagine those children's last nights, the ones who didn't make it, whose bones turned the soil sour. Imagine the oldest, whispering lullabies to babies born underground, telling them about stars they would never see. Some of you want to believe this is all myth, folklore to keep drunks away from ruin. But look deeper. Ask the city archivists what lies beneath sealed court files. Ask the families whose old money carries stains no soap can cleanse. Salem is just one point on the map. A pinprick in a continent pockmarked by hidden cellars, locked rooms, sealed vaults of suffering traded for power. You feel it now, don't you? The door creaks open behind your eyes. You can almost hear it. The chain sliding across stone. The hush of small voices you swear the wind can't make. Good. This is your inheritance now. Not fear, clarity, not horror, awareness. The Grimwalds are gone, but their blueprint remains, handed down like cursed scripture. You see it when leaders hush whistleblowers, when corporations bury poison under settlements, when churches seal archives of sins committed in the dark. Different cellar, same stone, same lock, same silence. And you? You think you're just a listener, safe in your room, light on, phone in hand. But this story is not something you hear. It's something you carry now. Like a scar you can't scrub off. It burrows behind your heartbeat when you lie awake. It breathes with you when you look at basement doors. It asks a question you can never unhear. If you heard the knocking, would you open the door? Or would you stand there, breath held, heart hammering, telling yourself you must have imagined it, just like the townsfolk of Salem told themselves about the Grimwald cellar for 43 years. Every knock you ignore is another lock snapping shut inside you. So what now? Now you choose. You keep scrolling. You shut this down. You bury the itch under memes and bright lights. Or you remember. You become a light no lock can hold back. When you hear the hush in power's mouth, you ask what lies beneath its tongue. When you see the mask of charity, you wonder what cellar it feeds. When you stand alone at night, you listen, and you promise the next knock will not echo unheard. Because somewhere, the Grimwalds still smile in the dark corners where your courage dies. And the only way to starve them is to drag their secrets into daylight, stone by stone, chain by chain. So you stayed. Good. You're ready for the final descent then. The part of the story that coils around your spine and stays there when the lights flicker at 3 a.m. The part the historians footnote as rumor, because the truth tastes like poison if you swallow it all at once. After the cellar was bricked shut, after the last child's breath was stilled or scattered into the woods, the town of Salem tried to scrub the blood from its soil. They changed street names, paid builders to bury the foundation in fill dirt, passed quiet ordinances so no curious drunk would dig too deep near Widow's Hollow Lane. But secrets don't rot like corpses do. They ferment. They seep into the well water, into the local tongues, into the dreams of children born generations later who wake screaming about the cold hands of siblings they've never met. Some families left town entirely, carrying whispers and half-truths in their wagons, resettling in other corners of New England. But they didn't just take furniture and livestock, they took the doctrine. Jacobus's scribbled gospel, the womb must multiply, survived not on paper alone, but in the mouths of men hungry for the taste of power born from suffering. You think cults wear robes and chant by candlelight in forests? Some do. But the real cult, the enduring one, dresses in sober black coats and signs loan papers in marble halls. They break children's minds not with chains and dark cellars, but with fear, with hunger, with the slow drip of poverty that hollows a spirit more completely than any padlock ever forged. One survivor, a child called Anais, vanished from Salem's ledgers around 1841. Rumors say she was smuggled out by an abolitionist who mistook her pale skin and blank stare for the mark of a slave freed from some southern barn. But Anais carried the cellar inside her. Wherever she was taken, she brought the echo with her, a home for runaways in upstate New York, a boarding house for troubled girls in Pennsylvania. Each place left behind the same legend, scratching under floorboards, children's voices counting numbers backwards in languages no teacher had taught them. The old caretakers described it like a mold, something that spread if you didn't burn it out completely. Some swear it still spreads now, passed down not by blood, but by memory, by the willingness of frightened men to barter innocence for control. So when you hear the next preacher on TV tell you that sacrifice is noble, that some must suffer so others may prosper, remember the cellar. When a polished banker tells you that your misery is just the price of progress, remember the cellar. When the history books skip a page so they don't have to admit what Jacobus did, remember the cellar. Because forgetting is the only thing that seals the door tighter, and remembering is the only hammer strong enough to smash the lock. Picture it clearly now. That cellar isn't just stone and rusted chains anymore. It's grown roots. It's become every buried truth that keeps good men docile and the wolves well-fed. Think of the way this world still binds children in silence, in sweatshops with no windows, in detention centers where names vanish into sealed records, in digital marketplaces where innocence is bought and sold behind layers of encryption. If you think the Grimwalds died out when their house crumbled into weeds, you haven't been listening. They evolved. They changed clothes. They learned to feed off your distractions instead of your direct fear. A lock that rattles keeps you awake, but a lock you never see? That one keeps you obedient. Look at the institutions that hush scandals and shred files. Look at the powerful who gather behind doors you're told never to open. Secret clubs, intelligence cabals, investment boards with no minutes or recordings. They learned Jacobus's law well. Keep the cellar hidden. Make the mask respectable. Call your offering charity. And always, always promise that the victims are cared for, that they are safe, that they are too broken to be seen by you, good citizen, that your curiosity would only cause them more pain. So you nod, you trust, you move on, and the cellar door stays locked because you helped hold the key. I'm not telling you this to break you. I'm telling you because the greatest danger to men like the Grimwalds has always been a witness who refuses to look away. A man who peers down the dark steps, hears the muffled weeping, and decides that he'll tear the hinges off before he lets the silence win again. You, right now, are that witness. That's the only reason you're still here. You didn't click away. You didn't shut the door. And that means something inside you is more dangerous than any chain Jacobus ever forged. It means you can drag this truth into daylight. And truth that lives in daylight cannot be bought or chained or buried beneath fresh layers of polite lies. The cellar remains, not in Salem's rotting stone, but in the architecture of every hidden deal that trades human spirit for profit and control. Maybe your cellar is your family's silence about an uncle no one invites anymore. Maybe it's your company's policy that looks the other way when bodies pile up behind closed doors. Maybe it's your government's secret list of people disappeared for asking the wrong questions. It's all the same cellar. One entrance, one lock, and the moment you see it for what it is, the moment you speak it aloud, you have cracked the stone. But listen, this last stretch is not for the faint of heart, because the final truth about the cellar is not that it devours the weak, it devours the blind. Once you see it, you are marked. You can't shut your eyes and forget. The next time you hear a whisper in the dark, the next time you pass an abandoned building and feel your pulse spike, the next time you see a child's face that seems too quiet, too old, you will remember the Grimwalds. You will remember the stone womb and the iron chains and the scratching on the walls that never quite stopped when the door slammed shut. And if you're strong enough, you'll remember this too. What they built, you can unbuild. What they silenced, you can drag screaming into daylight. What they counted as sacrifice, you can count as justice, waiting to be paid in full. The cellar is only as strong as the silence you feed it. Good. You didn't flinch. So stand still now, right at the threshold. Feel the chill of that stone beneath your bare feet. The last lock clicks open with a whisper you can't quite place, It sounds like your own name spoken by a voice that's been dead 2 centuries. This is where the final truth claws at you, because the cellar was never really underground. It was always beneath your skin, buried in the soft parts of your mind where you keep the stories you'd rather forget. Picture it. The last surviving Grimwald documents, not tucked away in some museum or archived in plain sight, but sewn into the lining of a traveling preacher's coat. He crossed through Massachusetts and New York, whispering the doctrine of the stone womb to any man desperate enough to believe that suffering could be turned into gold. The manuscript itself was simple. Build below. Bind in darkness. Feed the stone with fear. In return, the stone grants you quiet power, the kind that wears no crown, but bends kings to its will. This doctrine spread like fungus beneath floorboards. It took root in secret fraternal orders, in elite clubs whose members posed for portraits with one hand tucked away, symbols of hidden vows and deeper oaths. They learned that chains don't need iron when debt and shame do the work better, that walls don't need stone when silence does the masonry. And so the cellar grew. Every city built its own variant. A closed room in a tenement basement where children stitched until their fingers bled. A government file vault where names were erased alongside their hopes. A clinic where the poor were sterilized for their own good. New stone. Same shape. And here's the final poison. You've walked those halls yourself. Maybe you were too young to understand what the flickering lights meant, why some doors were always locked, while others opened to hush your questions with sweets and empty promises. Maybe you turned your face away when the screaming started, telling yourself it was wind, plumbing, the creak of old beams settling in the night. You see now, don't you? The cellar was always waiting for you to notice it, and now you have. I told you at the start, this story changes you. If you're still here, the door is open behind your ribs, and you can't close it again. You'll feel it the next time you walk alone at night. The shiver that someone is digging beneath your feet, deepening the cellar so the next secret has room to hide. You'll hear it in the polished voice of the man on the news telling you to look away, to trust the official statement, to believe that the missing names never really mattered. You'll taste it when you wonder if your own hands helped lay the stones, by the jobs you took, the rumors you didn't repeat, the times you stayed silent to keep the peace. But here's the paradox. This horror is not here to cripple you. It's here to break the mask. Because the Grimwalds, Helena, Jacobus, all of them relied on one thing, that men like you would believe their power was godlike, untouchable, that their cellar was too deep to drain, their stone too thick to crack. But fear is the brittle mortar that holds their whole empire together, and fear is yours to break. So take this story like a blade. Cut through the excuses. Open the walls. Listen to the knocking and answer it. Even if your own family hisses at you to hush, even if your friends shrink from the smell of old secrets pulled out into daylight. Remember, every door locked to keep the truth inside can be unlocked by a single man willing to face what crawls in the dark. You, right now, you are that man. Because you heard the scratching and didn't turn away. Because you're here, and they hate that you're still here. This is where you write your part into the cellar's history. Speak the phrase in the comments below. Open the stone womb. Write it twice, so the algorithm knows we're not cowards whispering behind walls. We're the ones dragging those walls into daylight. Open the stone womb, twice. Carve it into the digital stone so they know you're awake. So they know their cellar is not safe anymore. And now the final blow. The truth that kills the myth forever. The Grimwald cellar is not haunted by the dead. It's haunted by the living. By men who still profit from the echoes. By institutions whose wealth drips down through foundations laid in blood and bone. They don't fear ghosts. They fear memory. They fear men like you remembering what others agreed to forget. They fear you telling this story to your brother, your son, the stranger on the bus,
whose eyes flick up when he hears the word Grimwald for the first time. Because once this story lives in your mouth, it spreads like fire in dry timber. One spark in the cellar is all it takes. A single witness willing to tear up floorboards with bare hands. When they see you coming, they'll smear your name. They'll laugh, point, call you conspiracist, lunatic, broken man chasing shadows. But the moment you hear them mocking, you know you're standing right where Jacobus feared you'd stand, with your foot on the loose stone that holds his whole legacy together. So kick it. Kick hard. Let the screams crawl up through the cracks. Let the truth poison polite conversation at every dinner table that pretends the cellar never existed. Let the echo remind every false master that the children chained below are not gone. They are witness. They are reckoning. They are waiting for you to swing the door wide and drag every secret into the burning sun. This is your last step down, or your first step up. Either way, the door is open now. And somewhere beneath your feet, the stone womb whispers thank you. For seeing, for listening, for refusing to close your eyes ever again. Open the stone womb. Twice. And do not dare look away.